Warning. The topics discussed on this podcast are subject to adult themes and languages. We seek to unravel the unexplained and unknown. This is Encounters.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Encounters. My name's Dakota.
And I'm Amanda.
And on today's episode, we are doing another Encounters Revisited with the Ouija board.
Yes, I'm so excited. I think to this day, the Ouija board is still one of the things that I refuse to fuck with, man. I'm not playing with that, man. Don't ask. It's not happening for anybody ever.
I don't know. I found a Barbie-themed Ouija board at the Goodwill a while back, and I almost fucked with that, especially now.
Yeah, you feel like
Nothing's
you're ready.
Nothing's better than a hot pink spirit board. I'm gonna call up Ken or any of Barbie's exes. No,
Oh,
I don't.
nice.
I don't like messing with the spirit boards, but I do believe that they serve a very important purpose, and those of you that do mess with them, as long as you know the safe and practical ways to mess with them and don't, scream, come get my ghost dick, Zach Baggins. Sorry, I probably didn't need to clarify that. That didn't need clarification. We all knew who I was
Did
talking
he actually say that? I can't remember.
about. It doesn't matter. This is not about Ouija board. If you want to use them and use them appropriately, by all means. I'm just saying there's a plethora of stories that say maybe don't use them.
Exactly. I'm really excited about this because we're going to share some stories about people who fuck with these Ouija boards. And even in the history of the creation of this whole thing, a lot of people did not have happy endings. I'll just say that.
Yeah. They did
You
not.
there?
They did not have happy endings. So I think it's most important that we start with kind of a generalized overview of the Ouija board or the spirit board. The history predates a lot of what we have in Western culture, and earlier mentions can be found in Chinese culture. One of the first mentions of automatic writing has been found in 1100 AD in the historical documents of the Song dynasty. The method was known as Fuji, or planchette writing, where they would use a planchette as an ostensible means of necromancy. So it was kind of like, instead of having the board that we know today with all of the alphabet and communication letters on it, they had just a piece of paper with some form of writing device on a planchette, and the diviner would go into a necromantic suspension state where they were in some kind of hypnotized or higher form, and then the possessed or the dead or the ancient or the demons would come forth and write through that person.
Yeah.
We would see this continued in various ways all throughout ancient cultures, even further than the 1100s AD, but that is the first known mention in written history. It's very interesting to me that there is such a strong tie in Eastern culture to death and the other side and your ancestors. Something we see kind of represented in the Western culture, but very much tied to a spirit realm in Eastern culture. Fast forward several hundred years, and the next major mention that we get of modern day Ouija is around the 1800s in America in the spiritualist revival.
Yeah. That's when you really see the popularization of spiritualism at this time. And I think it's important to mention that people were dealing with death a lot more than we're seeing that like now. Back in the 1800s, death was always around the corner. A lot of people did not live to see past the age of 50. Mothers, they would have maybe 10 children and only maybe 5 or 4 of them would survive. A lot of times they would have parlor rooms in their house that would also sub as like funeral rooms. And we also are coming to the tail end of the Civil War. So like death was all around them at that time. And spiritualism was really taking off, like I said, with these Fox sisters who claimed that they were able to communicate with spirits with like these knocks. Do you happen to remember the name of the spirit? I did not grab it.
Give me 1 second.
Yeah, no problem.
I'll chase that rabbit.
I want to say it's like Mr. Spewley or something. Okay, anyway, so they were the first people to really popularize like the whole communicating with ghosts. And
Mr. Splitfoot. Sorry.
No, thank you. Mr. Splitfoot. Perfect. Thank
Later
you so much,
nicknamed
Dakota.
the Devil.
Ew, okay.
Ew, gross. But yeah, no.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. Ew.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, thank you. And so this, so like I said, that they could communicate with this spirit with like knocks and weird things happening, and that's when you start seeing the phrase table turning. And I'm gonna let Dakota actually explain that to you, but before that, they actually were able to go on tour and do these demonstrations in front of people. But Dakota, did you want to tell them about what table turning was?
Oh, yeah. So, table turning was another form of spiritualism contacting the other side. Much like the Fox sisters would use rapping or asking for the ghost to make noises, the table turning requires everyone to sit around the table and press your hands to it, making it a giant planchette. And as each person says a letter of the alphabet, the table itself will spin and turn, kind of leaning towards to spell out the different things that the spirit wanted to communicate. In other terms, sometimes, as parlor tricks, the table would also be levitated. It would spin furiously on the ground, and it would also be utilized as a means of saying that the spirits are here or something is here to take control. We'd see this later represented in Ouija as well when we were putting the planchette, which requires you to put your fingers on it as a group to channel energy and move it around for the spirit or entity to spell out messages from the other side. The Fox sisters were most notably known for asking yes or no questions and having knocks and raps in response from a ghost.
Yes.
And they were quite good at the little trickery that they were pulling, too. Like, even Harry Houdini went to their show and was like, "You're liars."
Yes, I do remember that.
And they were like, "You can't prove nothing." And then later they were like, "He could actually have proven it. We just, like, we made some really weird voices and used our throats really well."
Oh!
God damn it.
Excuse me. I don't know where that reaction came from. But yes, okay.
I don't know. I just imagine Leah being like, "Sister Margareta, would you please make the clicking noise with your throat?" And then Catherine being like, "If there's a ghost in here, knock twice." And Margareta being like, "Rah, rah."
They would have to be like ventriloquists if they could throw their voice that well.
I mean, that was around. And honestly, the rise of the spirit board and the rise of communications and stuff like this, Amanda said earlier, was around the end of the Civil War. And people at the end of the Civil War, they didn't come home for years. There were people waiting for family members to return that just maybe never even came back. So people had lost and people had been lost, and they were looking for answers to unsolved either disappearances, murders, and we see in spiritualism the idea that you can reach them, you can talk to them, you can get your closure. They're still here, they're still around. Whereas the other major religions at the time, specifically in the 1800s, in the Anglican Christian nation, were like, one, you can't talk to that board. If they're dead, they're with God or the devil, and that's not for you to do. Two, that board is of the devil. They gave them magic, and they're talking to it, and since I said no, you can't use it. So people were, like, secretly going out of their way to try and find that closure, which, I mean, we understand today. We see it revitalized again around World War I at the turn of the century.
All of them.
That's not turn of the century. Yeah, that's the turn of the century, the change of the century. Because, again, people were not coming home.
No, exactly. To go kind of back, also at the time, people were, like, kind of taking advantage of people and wanting to talk to the other side. And that's another kind of reason the Ouija board kind of came to fruition. This man named Charlie Kennard, he is one of the people who decided to invent the Ouija board. And he was known to be kind of like a snake oil salesman before he helped create this Ouija board, and may have even screwed somebody over. But it's more known about him working with Elijah Bond, who is a patent lawyer, and deciding, let's go ahead and make something to sell. And at first they were having a really hard time finding anyone who would take interest in it, until they brought in Helen Peters, who was Bond's sister-in-law and who was supposedly a medium as well. And that's when you see this board really start to take shape, and that's when the Ouija board actually gets its name. Do you want to tell that story, Dakota, or would you like me to continue?
You continue. I think it's also funny to talk about how it got its name. Right.
Because this is where it gets really like, I don't know. I don't like it. People are very skeptical of all of this stuff, so I will kind of go into all of that too.
It's all folklore. Like, this is the story that's been passed down to us, much like a lot of our lore and ancestry. So
exactly,
it could be fucking buffoonery.
Right, but it's still pretty creepy. So, like I said, Helen Parker is a medium, and she, with Elijah Bond, are trying to figure out a name for the board. And Helen is like, why don't we ask the board what name it wants? So that is when the board spells out Ouija. And they were like, oh, wow, that is a name. What does this word mean? And the board spells out, and that's kind of the end of it. Other people say that it's actually like a French and German mix of the word yes, because we being yes, and I don't know the German word for yes, but being like ja.
Oui, J, ja.
So that's what they suppose. That's how they said that the Ouija board got its name. Others say that Helen was actually wearing a necklace that had the name Ouija or Ouija, and it was the woman's name who was the picture inside of the necklace. So they're saying that story is just kind of, she was probably the one pushing it. But she ended up having like a lot of misfortune with the Ouija board. She got really attached to it and asked something got stolen from her house. Like, I think it was Civil War medals or something. And she asked the Ouija board who did it, and the Ouija board spelled out a name. And so Helen ended up accusing that person and ended up causing a big divide with the family. So after that, she sold off her shares. She wanted nothing to do with it, and she ended up saying on like her deathbed, like, it lies to not play with it. So that's kind of one of the first instances that you see like the Ouija board having like a bad effect on somebody's life as well. So Elijah, after they created the name, he ended up going to get it. He wanted to get a patent. So the patent officer really was not feeling it and did not want to sign off on it.
You want to have a magical board that speaks to the dead patented? That's what I imagine happening in the fucking patent office that day.
I bet. And Elijah was like, hey, let me prove it to you. What do you want? What do you want it to do? And the patent officer was like, I want it to spell out my name. And the board ended up spelling out his name. So he believed it and he gave it a patent. And it was extremely popular. Charlie Kennard made the Kennard, what is it called?
The Kennard Novelty Company?
Yes, Kennard Novelty Company. And this was around 1890, and they were selling over 2,000 boards a week. So they were doing really, really good. And that's when a man named William
Fold?
Thank you, because I don't know.
William Fold. Fold started, yeah.
Yeah, he got invested in the company, and
No, he started a different company.
from what I was seeing, he ended up getting the company from Kennard.
Yes.
I don't know how.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it started maybe in an investment, but by the end of it, he ended up with the company. And, I mean, they were taking off. They had factories everywhere. I think they had 2 in Baltimore, 1 in London at some point, and, like, somewhere else. I can't remember all the places. But the thing I really want to emphasize on at this point, because, like, at this point, like Dakota was just talking about, wars were happening, and people were really invested. They were making millions. They were selling millions of boards.
Yeah, because by that point, we're in World War I, when they start the major productions.
Yeah. There's two interesting facts I don't want to forget. Mr. Bond, his headstone, if you go there, his headstone is a Ouija board. And he actually, when he did die, he didn't have a headstone for a really long time. Someone fought for him to have a headstone.
Why didn't he have a headstone?
I can't remember why. But he just didn't have one. It was an unmarked grave. William Fold also had a really tragic demise. He was on the roof of a Ouija board factory, supposedly, according to the Baltimore Times. I don't know how true this is. The Ouija board had told him to make this factory. Well, he was on the roof watching a flag being installed onto the roof of the building when an iron handrail broke, and he ended up falling off the roof of the factory. And he did not die immediately. I want to say when I originally read this that I heard something about there like being a car accident, but I did not see that again. His ribs ended up barely like puncturing his heart, and he was bleeding out slowly. So he did tell his family not to sell off the Ouija board company, to never sell it off. They ended up selling, like the 4th generation ended up selling it off to the I think it's called the Peter brothers or the Parker brothers.
It's the Parker brothers. And Hasbro, I think, has some now too.
Now they bought them out now, yes, and they own like all of the copyrights and everything on that. So that's kind of like the quick history. And every time any kind of tragic event happens, the sales of Ouija board go just out of the roof. Is that a saying? People really want to connect. And at one point, like in like the 30s or 40s, like these were being used as like date night games.
Yeah, lovers games too.
Yeah,
you can ask the ghost questions. It really became a parlor game situation where people would gather around, they'd have a sherry, a brandy, or a smoke, and then they would be like, let's ask the dead questions because they're here to do things for us. And you're like, okay, yeah, no, sure. They did become fun little date night situations where you could ask about your future.
Yeah.
We see this a lot in the Victorian era, especially surrounding crystalmancy and future telling and lots of fun little party games to keep people socially entertained since everyone died in the war and they need something to do.
I mean, right.
But while Amanda and I have talked about the history of the Ouija board, should we talk about its uses and like maybe the rules behind how to use it?
Please, yes.
So in front of me, I thrifted a Ouija board, and I just went out and got the instructions. And I'm going to read you the official Hasbro instructions for the Ouija board. This is the how do I make it work portion. At night, leave the board and the planchette side by side under a lamp with the light on for approximately 10 minutes. During the day, leave them in a sunny window. The glow will last for approximately 30 minutes. It's because it's glow in the dark.
Okay. I was like, 1 second?
I was like, how? I didn't know that was that important. I got really confused.
Like, demonic shit is that? But it's glow in the dark, so it's not. I was about to say, Dakota, get rid of it. Why is it gonna get skinny like
Why is it gonna get warm? That's like a reptile. Set up. If desired, set the mood by dimming the lights or turning them off. Before using the Ouija trademarked board, wipe it with a dry cloth to remove dust and moisture. Sit opposite another player and gather around the board if more than 2 are playing. Set the Ouija trademarked board either on the player's laps or on a small table between and within reach of the players. Additional players are encouraged to look on and take note of the Ouija trademarked board's responses. Set the planchette in the center of the Ouija board. Trademark. Goddamn. Place 2 fingers lightly on the planchette. Now concentrate. What do I do now? Players take turns asking questions, and all should agree to the questions being asked. Ask only one question at a time. Ask your question slowly and clearly. And wait to see what the planchette spells out for you. If nothing happens, try asking another question. Allow 1 to 5 minutes for answers to come. And that's it. That is all they give you.
Oh, wow. But there's other rules to it, right?
Yes, there are other rules to it. The unspoken rules are you play the Ouija board, you sit with 2 people opposite one another. Place your fingers on both hands lightly on the planchette and move the planchette around the game board in a nice big circle. It usually works best with the lights out and the candles lit. I believe you say hello, and then you can call a spirit or speak to whatever arrives in the room. You ask your questions and always say goodbye. Do you remember anything else?
That's what I remember. You had to have 2 people and you had to say goodbye.
That's pretty much it. I did find an article from 1995 where a man writes into this newspaper and tells them a list of things they also should not do rather than the do's.
Okay.
So, Matt Hancock says, you're not supposed to ask the Ouija board to predict death or when you will die because it's supposed to cause you to die.
Yeah.
You are never supposed to throw the Ouija board away. The only way you can get rid of all the spirits is to burn the whole thing. Which, okay, I don't know if you know us, but I am always against burning and releasing things.
Yeah, me too.
You can tie a rock to it and throw it in a large body of water. Or put it in a large jar filled with water if you're trying to get rid of it. Submerge, don't burn. Submerge to purge.
And I approve this message. I surely do.
Suddenly we start getting pictures of a whole bunch of people with a jarred Ouija boards.
Please, I would love that, because do not burn it. Just do not, whatever you do, please, God,
Worst
don't.
story I feel like I've ever remembered was someone was like, I've got a haunted doll. I'm going to burn it. Oh, great. Now it's not contained.
Right.
You are not supposed to play by yourself because you can be drawn into the spirit world. He says, when I was younger, we talked about playing the Ouija board during a Sunday school class, and my teacher told us that it is the Catholic belief that you sell your soul to the devil the first time you play the Ouija board game. I guess you're never supposed to ask to talk to Satan, or if Satan's spirit is the one you're talking with.
Good to know.
I've also heard that if the triangle moves off the board, you are supposed to immediately turn it upside down. That will clear you of any danger. That was new. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. Good to know.
I don't know if I believe that, but okay.
Try it.
I think when the triangle pointer starts going round and round and round on the board, you are to turn the pointer upside down and tap it on the board. I was told that it relieves all the evil in the room. Let me tell you something. If that planchette is going round and round and round of its own accord, I'm not grabbing it.
That's a demon. That is a demon. Let me tell you what.
You are not supposed to leave the game board sitting out after you are done playing the game. It attracts spirits to the room. You are to put everything back in the box and store it in the closet. And that's the last one.
Didn't yours just tell you to put it out into the sun? It's trying to get your house haunted.
Yep, it did. It said for 30 minutes, let it warm up in the sun.
Can I go off on a side note for a quick second?
Absolutely.
Do you remember? I don't remember what we were watching, but I feel like it was a haunted, like, mental institution or something, and they were playing with the Ouija board, and some lady went flying across the room. Was it Ghost Adventurers or like Ghost Hunters or something?
I think it's Ghost Adventurers.
It was like they recorded this footage themselves, but this woman like went completely flying across the room. Do you know what I'm talking about?
She said, "Ah." I can't remember if it's the Zozo story or not. I feel like it was.
Remember. It was something because I was like, "Wow, this is." Yeah, I think it might have been. Okay, sorry. Then we'll talk about that next time.
Yeah, no. I think it's important to say though, right here, one of the biggest like creatures that come out. If you don't contact the spirits of the recently deceased, you end up contacting what we know as either jinn or demons. And one of the more famous cases around paranormal possession is the Zozo case, which takes place here in Oklahoma. So it'd be very important to mention, but we are looking at doing a deep dive into the demons of Ouija, because I know we've got Pazuzu attached with the Roland Doe possession, which is also the inspiration for The Exorcist, which they say was inspired because of a Ouija board being found and used. The Zozo demon possession case, which could be Pazuzu, could be Satan, whatever, and what happened in that small house in Oklahoma. And then several other entities that have been contacted using these spirit board techniques.
Yeah, that's a great segue, actually, Dakota, for the turn. The Ouija board went from being like a fun date night thing to being like the beacon for Satan to come and like talk to your kids.
Satanic panic!
Right, around 1973 with the release of the Exorcism movie because of everything Dakota just mentioned. So, with that being said, let's jump into some stories that we found on the internet about people having some really terrifying experiences with the Ouija board. Okay, my first one is quite short because I kind of went down a rabbit hole with this, so I'm going to take the time to explain it. And this is like a Reddit thread about people who use the Ouija board and if it was real or fake. And this one user named Blue Boy 800 shares his story, and he says, "My friend and I stayed at a youth hostel in Ottawa. It used to be a jail. We set up a Ouija board in front of this cage where they would hang prisoners and people could watch from the courtyard. Nothing happened to our board while we were using it, but later when we went to bed, something threw our Ouija board cursor at my face in the middle of the night. And my friend kept hearing the sound of someone running from the door to his bed." And this unlocks this thread of like people just warning against the Ouija board, saying that like demons and blah, 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 blah have contacted them. But I'm going to let Dakota tell his story, and then I will share another story from this thread.
This story comes from Reddit user The Tree Man and is entitled Secrets of the Lake. When I was little, my mom took out a Ouija board and asked my brother and I if we'd like to play with it. It started out pretty funny. Someone was obviously moving the little glass thing, making words like poop and stuff like that. Did I mention we were young enough for this to be hilarious? But then my mom said, "Let's get serious and try to contact someone here." And this is where it starts to get weird. A friend of hers had recently gone missing. He'd been missing for a month or so, and nobody knew where he was. When we asked who we were talking to, he spelled out his name. Let's say it was George, since I genuinely don't remember. When we asked George if he was my mom's friend, he said yes. My mom got visibly upset and asked where he was. "In a lake" was spelled out. It was extremely upsetting, and we stopped immediately. Mom tried to be lighthearted about it, and since I was young, I believed it was no big deal as well, following her lead. About 2 weeks later, they found George's body. He had been hit by a car or a train or something on some bridge, and his body fell into a nearby lake, though it was more like a very large pond. It was a reasonably remote place, so nobody found it for a while. And that was Tree Man's experience with the Ouija board. Which, that's fucking scary. Like, I feel like that is a legitimate, like, that's not wild and out there. That's not some demon being like, blah, I'm here to suck your blood. That's literally like, hi, my name is George and I died in the lake. Can someone please come get my body?
Right. No, totally. And how would people know that, too, to, like, even make that be something that's spelled out?
Right.
I mean, it could be, like, a coincidence, but, I mean, some people don't believe in coincidences, so it could be very, very valid as well. But, yeah, that is creepy. So, I'm going to share this other one, because on this thread, like I was saying, people were going back and forth about how their experiences were real and why to not use this Ouija board because it's so scary. So this one's from Blue Honey XX. She says, I tried it a couple years ago. I used to play it every night for a week or more with my 2 girlfriends. At first, I was skeptical about it. I kept in mind that there was a possibility that one of the girls could be moving the ring. But every time we played, things got so believable that we got addicted to the thrill. Here are some of the things that made me believe this totally worked and got us in direct contact with a spirit. During a round, a man's coughing sound coming from the kitchen. It was pretty loud and clear, and all 3 of us, we were home alone. All at once, we asked the spirit to spell his name. He spelled Beelzebub. It was our first time hearing this name, or even seeing it. We're Arab and are not familiar with the Bible and demons that are mentioned in it. We were very shocked after looking it up. This is the worst encounter we had. One of the 2 girls got tired after around 3 or 4 rounds and decided to lay down on the couch next to us. It only took her a little time to fall asleep. Me and the other girl kept playing. When at a point, all it spelled on the board is the sleeping girl's name. We ignored it and changed the question, but it kept going until we asked the spirit what he wanted from her. It spelled bleed. We asked where. It said nose. The girl immediately jumped up out of her sleep thinking she had a nosebleed because her nose felt very cold. There was nothing. The thrill wasn't worth it. When we woke up the next morning, dozens of bugs were flying around the area where the board was. The electricity went down for days and no one could figure out the reasons why. We moved out the next month. And quickly they just said that they are Muslim and that's why they did not know the name of the demon that was spelled out. So, and that they didn't actually have a Ouija board. They had created their own. So yeah.
They created their own what? Like spirit board?
Yeah, they created their own talking board on a piece of paper with probably.
Yeah, then you created. The fuck you mean you didn't know? You didn't know. What were you doing then? What were you trying to do? Why would you have this idea? Why were you fucking doing this? I don't care. You listen. The demons in Islam are fucking way worse than the demons in Christianity. Fucking jinn? Whoa. No. I wouldn't fuck with that shit.
Yeah, totally. But it was someone actually made a great point. No matter what ethnicity or religion, kids will be curious. And so they did everything they had 2 people, they had candles lit, they made their own board, and they're just as curious as we are. It's interesting that it was a Christian demon, though. What do you think about that?
I mean, contextually, they say it's a Christian demon. Demons lie. It could have been any of the.
Yeah, true.
I think what this goes to show is that there's a fascination with death and the other side globally, no matter what. All throughout history, people have been obsessed since the moment of recorded history. We see an obsession with not only dying, but what is the afterlife. Whether it be religion, whether it be science, whether it be trying to figure out how to get to the underworld by going through the Earth's core. There is an obsession with what we don't know and what we can't come back from with knowledge on. Yeah, there's some people that have had some close near-death experiences. There's some people that have died and come back on the operating table, and that can be considered blah, blah, blah. But no one has gone... I don't know if anyone has been able to successfully and scientifically transverse to whatever other side and come back with legitimate proof.
Yeah, no, that's very hard.
That leaves that part up to faith, up to your imagination, up to your spirituality, and that's where shit gets really scary.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, this story comes from Shane, not Reddit user, but it is from the JSTOR archives. It's from this one's from 2004. It's called Grandma It. We were at my mom's house in Dwayne's room, and me and Levi, a close friend, were playing Ouija, and it told us it was Grandma It, which it turns out was the name that Levi had given to a ghost that had haunted his cousin's home. None of us knew that, though, except Levi. Anyway, I asked the Ouija board about my dad, and it said,
"The gates are open."
This scared me a little, so I asked my mom to come use the board so she could close the gate because I tried and I could not do it. We were about to put it away after that when some more friends came over and we got it back out. They stayed for a while and we messed around with it, and then we finally put it away. That night, after I went to bed, I woke up one time and it felt like I could not move, and I felt like I was being held down. I started to hear voices, so I woke up Josh, another close friend, Levi's cousin, and told him that if he heard me moving around or saw me wake up, that he should grab my leg so I can snap out of it. Later that night, it happened again, and Josh grabbed me, and I jumped up and screamed, and so did Josh, and the funny thing was, my voice was all wrong. It was really deep and scary. All of the commotion somehow didn't wake anyone up. But the next day, my mom said that she had heard a woman laughing in the middle of the night. After that, we burned the Ouija board just down the road from my house, and it turned all kinds of colors, and smoke hissed and cracked. I will never use the Ouija board again.
You're fucking right. No, thank you. I didn't pick this story, but I was reading one about the Ouija board asking them to all talk to them one by one. I was like, oh fuck no. I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I was reading one about a girl who was using it and then like had a panic attack, so she was like, I'm done, said goodbye, and then literally she woke up and just saw a woman staring at her through the window pane, just a deathly stare, screaming, and I was like, absolutely not. No, thank you.
Yeah, I remember the first time we recorded this, I was talking about my friend's experience, and he was starting to see like shadow people around his house and all this fucking scary ass shit after he played with the Ouija board. So I'm with everybody else. Like I said, back in the 70s, it kind of had a turn for like scary, not fun to play with type of thing. And it's kind of gone from there. As Dakota said, the church doesn't fuck with it. A lot of spiritualists don't fuck with it unless they feel like they are, able to. I don't know, how would you explain that?
Aleister Crowley loved it. That's how I would explain that. The Grand Beast himself said it was a wonderful tool and invention. However, many Catholics, like I said in my story, believe that the moment you use one, your soul is sold. So you might as well use it forever. And
right.
I mean, Catholicism so recently as 2001 held a mass Ouija board burning in New Mexico.
Yes.
Saying they were symbols of witchcraft. A spokesperson for the Catholic bishops in 2005 said that they're not dangerous. The Ouija board is far from harmless, as it is a form of divination seeking information from supernatural sources.
Yeah.
But I mean, is that not just what praying is?
Well, the difference is you're asking questions to be like on a board. I mean, if you use like a pendulum, that's pretty much the same, right? Because you're asking yes and no questions, like for the spirit to answer.
Yeah. But we do see a lot of, like, pushback against it. In the spiritualism realm, they believe that there usually needed to be someone, a channeler. You needed a medium, someone that was close to the other side. You couldn't just pick up a board and do it. That went out the window when it became a parlor game and board game. And they were like, let's put one of these spirit communicators in every household across the world.
Exactly.
So much so that there's a Barbie Ouija board.
And I think that's the big reason why, like, spiritualists nowadays have a big problem with it, because a lot of people don't know how to close these doors that they're opening, and who knows.
You just have to say goodbye.
But a lot of people don't. A lot of people just set them on fire.
Good God. Stop burning things. Don't you know we got global warming? We don't need anything else in the atmosphere.
Exactly. So there's all these people playing with it. And I mean, I guess we can also just, because we're kind of wrapping up, move into like the spectacle aspect of it. What like kind of like scientists in the more scientific community thinks of it.
Oh yeah, no, the scientific community definitely believes it's horse shit. And I mean, me too. Not all of it. I do definitely think there is a way to contact the other side. I don't know if 5 teenagers in a basement with a hunk of plastic are doing it.
You don't know that they're not.
But we're obsessed with urban legends. We're obsessed with lore. So we have certain stories of teenager does this. Oh, God. Every teenager's playing Dungeons and Dragons and using Ouija boards and having sex and smoking that marijuana. We got to protect the kids. So it blows up. And utilizing protection of the youth has always been a weaponization against witchcraft, against counterculture, against lots of other things. But science itself has simulated it down to the subconscious kind of answering its own questions. Specifically, they believe it uses the psychological phenomenon ideomotor phenomenon, or IMR, which is a concept of hypnosis and psychological research. It is associated with the term ideodynamic response or reflex. So the idea was that people, when they were asking questions during the spirit board, their subconscious would kind of help guide them towards the letters. They would basically answer their own questions. Who is in the room with me? Oh, it's when we were looking for long lost relatives. It's Paul. It's John. It's Mark. Oh, great. They died in the war. But with teenagers in the 80s, it was very much like, it's Satan! Ooh, yeah! Rock and roll! In the 90s, it's like, oh my God, it's Pazuzu! In the 60s, it's whatever. And Zozo, and so on, and so on, and so on. But really, it's just kind of our brain subconsciously moving things. Utilizing that, what we call the cloud ideology, especially when you're playing with a group of people. A lot of the time, stuff doesn't happen. Otherwise, we'd be hearing Ouija board stories left and right. I mean, honestly, if you could take out a Ouija board and get literal proof of contacting the spirit world, I think more people would be doing it, and it'd be all over TikTok or YouTube. I don't feel like it is in that regard, so I think it still leaves that idea of mystery, and maybe people can't get access to it. Maybe people don't vibrate on that function.
Right.
But science has stimulated it down to either it's a hoax, like the Fox sisters, like Harry Houdini went to prove, or there is some weird subconscious sense that allow us to check in and move things and kind of answer our own questions, which is really dynamic about the human mind. We are problem solvers. And, I mean, I feel like we're one of the only... No. Never mind.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I feel like we're one of the only creatures that experiences anxiety, but have you met my dog?
Right, yeah.
But, like, that idea of worrying about something that isn't there or is there, the idea of having a deeper cognitive understanding, only using 20% of our brain, there's so much of the human condition that we don't know and are studying that, is it a connection to the spirit realm? Is it us being able to check in with each other and vibrate on local planes of existence with each other rather than just functioning in the world.
Yeah. And, Hollywood has been able to, take that and run with it as well. I think that's why we still have so much fear associated with the Ouija board, because every other Hollywood movie, some kid is doing something with, if it's not like a typical like Ouija board movie, it's some kind of, I think they have a movie coming out not too like here in the near future called Talk to Me. Did you see the trailer for that? And it's like a bunch of kids get together and there's like this hand where they can go and talk to like spirits on the other side, and then it kind of goes wrong, and then they have a hard time closing the door, kind of like any other Ouija board kind of concept. So I think that's where the fear also exists within us, because our subconscious is so powerful that it can really make us feel like we're seeing anything, especially in those kind of moments. And then Hollywood's just feeding off all of that. So yeah, anything else?
The last little bit I'll leave you with here for me is that there are some forms of modern day witchcraft and religion on the pagan aspect that still utilize spirit boards, and I think it's a valid form of contact, especially with ethereal spirits of the dead, especially if that's your personal attachment. Normally in the past I'm like, fuck that, don't mess with that, blah 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 blah. If that is your practice, that's absolutely valid. I'm just saying that there is a long history of the spirit board. It's both got good things, it's both got bad things. The human fascination with death is always present, so yes. I don't think they're going away, and I don't think they should be shamed, but they should definitely be used with respect and a healthy dose of curiosity, but also a major dose of skepticism, because if you don't know anything about it and you just jump in and start doing it, you may get a demon, you may not have a good time, you may just be bored. But make sure you use it respectfully. I don't think it's great to go kick someone's headstone over and like put a Ouija board on top of it and be like, let's talk to Tom Riddle. But
I totally agree.
Everyone's allowed their experiences. Just don't get caught in a graveyard with your pants down. That's not the message I want to leave on. But anyway, that's our episode. Make sure you catch an extended episode on the Ouija board demons later this season. Join us next time when we discuss the conspiracy theory of the Denver airport.
Yes.
Super secret
gosh.
satanic portal.
I feel like I've been hearing so much about the Denver airport recently, so I'm really glad that we're going to have our mistress of conspiracy come back and drop some knowledge.
Very much looking forward to what Natalie's got to tell us about the satanic airport.
Yes.
If you like what you hear, make sure you're liked and subscribed on Facebook, Instagram, and on our podcast page on Apple Podcasts. You can get Encounters everywhere you listen to podcasts. If not, just send us an email over at encountersthepodcast@gmail.com. Do you have a spooky story you want to share with us? You should shoot that email over too. Amanda and I would love to hear from you. And until next time, I'm Dakota.
I'm Amanda.
Stay spooky.